This is very modern. Our native people were just like everyone else, maybe more. You know, many times when we travel, our dance group, we travel overseas. We've been to Amman, Jordan. We've been to Japan, China, Russia, all over Europe. Many times they wonder, like, how do we get there? Like, don't we still live in TVs? Don't we still ride horses everywhere? Believe it or not, people still believe that. But we're just like everyone else. We actually feel more comfortable dressed like this. This is who I am. This is me. My name is Salvatore Vinciguerra. I'm not called Choctaw Nation. I said my name is Dancing Eagle Feathers, and I come from the Choctaw Nation called people. The outfit that I wear, in the same way as all of these other people, individuals up here, those represent clan, tribe, family. The designs that they choose, they represent those things. The colors, they represent those things. Everything that we wear has meaning, has purpose. Now, I'm going to talk about this outfit that I'm wearing. I have the right to talk about this and the dance that I do. Now, many years ago, our people, the Choctaw people, were the very first removed from our ancestral homelands, what is now Miccosukee, and were moved into the Indian Territory, which is now Oklahoma. How many of you guys have heard of the Trail of Tears? Right? Our Seminole people here, they took part in that as well. Many people went to Oklahoma. Some ran into the swamps here, and that was their safe place. And we're very, very thankful that they did that, because that preserved a lot of our ways. Our tribe, the Choctaws, have a very, very close relationship with the Seminoles. We come from the same speaking family, the same speaking tribes. Now, during this time of the Indian removal, there were books that were being written about the Native American. All of these things that you see up here, the songs that you hear, some of these songs are very, very old. Some of them are new. Like I said, they've evolved. But believe it or not very long ago, many of these things were outlawed. We weren't allowed to do them. Like our long hair, it doesn't give us any special power or anything like that. Many times people, they think that, they ask that. But there was a time not very long ago that our dads and our uncles and our grandpas weren't allowed to have long hair. We weren't allowed to speak our language. We weren't allowed to do these dances or sing these songs. During that Indian Removal Act, when we were moved into Indian Territory, that took all the way up until the early 18 and 1900s. The long hair and the speaking the language and those things like that took all the way up until the 70s, believe it or not. And up into Canada, into the late 70s, that they weren't allowed to do those things. So some of these things that you're seeing here, we learned them from our ancestors that took them underground, that hid them, and took that risk of going to jail by teaching us these things. But during that time, when these things were being outlawed, there were books that were being written about the Native American. And these books, they portrayed us to be animals or more like savages than human beings. And these books, they were sent into the big cities of Washington and New York City and overseas into London and Paris. These people that read these books, they wanted to see this way of life before it was all gone. So a man by the name of Buffalo Bill and another man by the name of Pawnee Bill started these Wild West shows. They came to Indian Territory, picked up young people, and took them to show them off in the circus-type atmosphere. Well, the way that they dressed back then, they dressed kind of very similar to what Larry dressed. They had that bustle, like what I'm wearing on my back here. This bustle represents the battlefield here. When the creator is looking down on the battlefield, that battlefield is shaped in a circular pattern. The feathers that they chose back then were eagle, hawk, buzzard, crow, and sometimes owl feathers. These feathers, they would give them to individuals that did good deeds in battle, maybe stealing the enemy's horse, taking the enemy's life, or counting cool on that enemy. Those feathers were given to those individuals. The reason why they chose those feathers was because after a battle, they could find those birds feasting on the enemy. This wasn't something that we wore into battle. It was something that we would put on when we showcased what we did in battle. Kind of like when our warriors come home now and all those ribbons and bars and medals on their chests. They don't wear those in the battle. It's just to show the people what they did. That's what that represents. Now, during those old, early Wild West shows, when those warriors would come out and they were dressed in that way, the people were terrified of what they seen, and they got up and they took off running because all the books portrayed us to be savages. So our elders at that time said, well, we need to kind of tone it down a little bit and make it to where more eye-friendly to our guests. That's the reason why you see all the bright colors now. It's to where we're not so terrified. Another reason, because our native people, no matter what tribe you come from, we're very, very competitive. We've always been very competitive since the beginning of time. Maybe still in the enemy's force, maybe counting food. But we also have gambling games. We had like stickball games, and we had hand games and moccasin games. There were kind of games of chance. So the casinos that we have here, it's an evolution of what we used to be like as well. We've had those things since back in those days. Another reason why we have the bright colors is to stand out. Because when we gather at these celebrations called power, we come and we put our best dancers against one another, and we want to see who the best is. Kind of that fulfills that need for competition. The dance that I do, this is called the men's fancy war dance, and it takes the movements from the horse. Once again, paying respect to that animal. Thank you very much.
Give them a bullet. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? Just get warmed up here. Get warmed up here. True champion right here. We're going to do a shake, rattle, and roll. Rock and roll.